I'm Idiotech, and this is You Should Play, a series where I recommend games that I enjoy because I think you might enjoy them also. Today's game is Opus Magnum. It's brought to you by Zachtronics, the creators behind Spacecam, Infinifactory, and Shenzhen.io. This is by far their best game in my opinion. I absolutely love it, so let's jump in. Okay, so you play the role of an alchemist whose name I cannot pronounce. Let me show you him here. This is you. I cannot pronounce his name and I'm not going to try. Now, the way this game works is you're an alchemist and you're trying to graduate from university and create really good solutions. Pretty simple. And you're using a machine, and that's what the gameplay revolves around. So this is your guy, and you talk to people, and there is a story as you progress through the game, which is kind of nice. But the focus here is really the puzzle solving. So we're going to jump into this initial example here called Stabilize Water. Now, I'm not going to show you how arms work and pivots and pistons and tracks and all these things. If you're interested, you can learn that yourself by playing the game. Instead, what I'm going to do is jump into the first example where you put it all together and you learn essentially how the game works. Stabilize water. So let's create a new solution here and let's open it. So this is where you play the game on this mat, so to speak. We have various things on the left-hand side. We have a bunch of instructions down here. There's a lot of things to take in at first. We also have this, which will tell us about the basic elements and how to create things like tin, iron, copper, silver, and gold. Don't worry about that. It may seem complicated at first, but you'll get your head around it pretty quickly. So the first thing we need to do is drag our product down here. This is what we need to create, in this case, stabilized water, which is a combination of a water molecule and a salt molecule. Not particularly complicated. Next, we have our reagents. In this case, it's 2 water molecules. Then we have our mechanisms and our glyphs. So in this case, what we're going to need to do is bond salt and water. So we're going to need a glyph of bonding. We're also going to need to transform water into salt itself, and for that we're going to use the glyph of calcification. This allows us to take an air molecule, a water molecule, fire, earth, and turn it into salt, which is what we need to do in this case. So we're going to grab one of those. We're also going to need a means to do that, and we're going to use arms for this. Now, as you can see, all of these items cost money, and that will come into play later, as you will see. So for this, I'm going to use 2 fixed arms. Now, you can extend the length of these arms, but you cannot program them to change their length during an animation. So what you can do instead is use a piston arm, and that allows you to do just that. There's also tracks here, which allow you to draw out tracks for your arms to move along, and there's a ton of other complicated things that you get access to as you progress through the game. But for this example, all we need is these things. So what I'm going to do is rotate this here on a pivot point. I'm going to move these out of the way. I'm going to put my glyph of bonding here. I'm going to put my glyph of calcification here. I'm going to put an arm here. I'm going to put the water here. I'm going to put another water molecule here and an arm here. Now, I've done this before, obviously, but it's not a very complicated puzzle either. I'm going to move these arms into position. So, there we go. There's our basic layout. First of all, what we want to do is go to track 1 here. As you can see, this arm has 1 on it and this arm has 2 on it. If we select them, it selects different tracks. We're going to want to program these arms to do what it is we need it to do, which is to create stabilized water. So the way that we do that is using these instructions here. This instruction, and there are hotkeys for these, by the way, if you want to use them. This instruction will grab an item, in this case, this water molecule. So what we're going to do is put this here. And what that will do is pick it up, as you can see. Pretty cool. Then we need to move it over 1. So let's pick it up. Wrong direction. I always screw these up. Let's move it this way instead. And there you go. You can see as the water molecule moved over the glyph of calcification, it turned into salt. And we can check that here. Here, salt. You see, that's what salt looks like. Fire, air, water, earth, etc. Okay, so you get to learn these symbols pretty quickly as you play. So we pick it up, we move it through here, and it turns into salt. So that's the first step complete. Next, we need to move it up into this glyph of bonding, and then finally up to the product section. So we're just going to do that by adding an additional command and then another one, and then we're going to drop the object at the end of the process. So let's see if this works. And by the way, this button down here, the step hotkey, in this case tab, you can press tab if you like, allows you to step through your program, which is very useful for debugging, and you will use it a lot. So we're going to step through once, and we turn it into salt. Step through twice, move it up to the bonder. Step through 3 times, and we move it up to the final product section, and then we drop it. Cool. So that arm's doing everything we need it to do. Next, we're going to want to pick up this water molecule using arm 2, and we're going to want to move it 1 step upwards. And hopefully this works, and it does. And you can see when these two connect on that bonder, it creates a bond between them, which is what we need to complete the puzzle. Then I'm going to step forward one more time, and you can see we get an error. Bound atoms may not be moved in two different directions at once. And so what that means is I need to let go of this atom with this arm. So that's very easy. We just do this and put this here, and there you go. And it moves up to the top. Now we have another problem to solve, and that is that the final product we've created works, but it's in the wrong position. So the way we solve that is by introducing a pivot instruction. So here, before we drop it, I'm going to pivot this arm. And this allows us to move it into the correct position, like that, as you can see, and then we drop it into the product section. So that, for all intents and purposes, is a functional machine. And if I press play, you'd expect it to work. But it doesn't. And the reason for that is because I need to reset the arms back to their original position so that every time it loops through, it works perfectly. So to do that, all I'm going to do is rotate this back 3 times back to its starting position and rotate this back 1 time back to its starting position. And when we press play, this should work perfectly. Let's watch it in action. We need to create 6 products in this case. And there you go. Works perfectly. So that's how you solve a puzzle in this game. Now, what I really like about this game is the following. We have cost here, cycles, and area. And as you can see, I did pretty well when it comes to cost. These people, by the way, are people on my friends list, but it does also compare you to the overall community. So a dirty rumor here managed to do this puzzle for 20 gold less than me. That's pretty good. I would honestly like to know how he did that, because no one else seems to have been able to do it. Next, we have cycles. And that's how many cycles it takes to create the product, obviously. And then we have area, how much space you're using. I didn't do very well when it comes to area, and I didn't do very well when it comes to cycles, which is, fine. I can go back and I can try and refine my machine to make it more optimal. And that's what I really like about this game. The fact that you can solve a puzzle in a very inelegant and unoptimal way, but you can solve the puzzle. So you don't have to necessarily be very good at puzzle solving to enjoy the game, to be able to progress. But the fun for me comes from being able to refine those systems to try and make them more compact, use less cycles, and cost less. And competing with your friends on a leaderboard adds to that enjoyment for me. Now, one really cool feature about this game, and it should be included in way more puzzle games, is record GIF. Now, if I press this button here, you'll see it records a GIF of my actual solution, and then it will save it to my desktop so I can share it with my friends or post it on Reddit or post it on a forum somewhere and compare solutions with other people, which is really, really cool. That needs to be in a lot more puzzle games moving forward. So we're going to return to the menu, and I'm going to show you a much later puzzle in the game. A lot more complicated, not necessarily in terms of its layout, but in terms of the programming involved. So let's jump into hair product here. Now, as you can see, there's a story here as to why you're creating hair product, and that's fine, and you can read that in your own time. Let's create a new solution, and let's jump in. So for this case, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create 4 of these earth molecules, and we're going to have to bind them together and have them on these specific angles. Not the easiest thing to do. So the way I'm going to do that is by getting obviously an earth molecule, but I'm also going to have to get a glyph of bonding because I'm going to need to bond these together. As you can see, these bonds in the middle need to exist. And I'm going to get at least 1 arm. I think I might need 2, so I'm just going to put that one over there. And then, this is the tricky part, I'm going to have to work out how to do this. So this arm obviously is going to be able to move it around like this in a circle, which I think will be the most efficient solution. However, there are many ways you could do this. You could do this with 10 arms. You could do it with 1 arm. You could do it with a track. You don't have to do it in one way, and I really like that about this game. Okay, so I'm going to move this here. So now we have a perfect circle, which looks efficient and area efficient in this case. I'm going to move this here, and I'm going to move this here. So what I'm going to try and achieve here is I'm going to move this earth element into this slot. I'm going to pick it up with this and move it over here. I'm going to move another one in and then move this down, and so on and so forth until we create the desired result. So let's try and do that now. So let's select arm 2. We're going to pick up, obviously. We're going to move to the right, and then we're going to drop it, and then we're going to move it back and reset it. So let's see if that works. Nope, I chose the wrong directions. As always, I do find that a little bit complicated sometimes. Maybe it's just me, but I do find these a little counterintuitive in terms of the direction, because to me, that indicates that it's going to move left, but it in fact moves right. I don't know if that's just me, but I find that a little bit counterintuitive sometimes. So we're going to move that into position there, and then we're going to move it back to the start here. Okay, that works. Next, we're going to pick up the solution. Let's pick it up here. And then we're going to move it this way, I think. Nope, that's the wrong direction. Again, I find those things counterintuitive. We'll move it over here. Okay, cool. And now it repeats, and now it repeats, and now it repeats, and now it repeats. So you're thinking, well, okay, you're much later in the game. How is this complicated? Well, as you'll see, if I continue to step through, it's going to keep adding those bonds and eventually create a perfect circle, and then it's going to collide. So that's not the solution. What we are going to have to do here is we're going to have to use the repeat instruction key. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to drop this, and that will copy the previous 4 commands and repeat them. And then I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to do it again. So what this should do is rotate it 3 times. Nope, it's going to collide because this one isn't dealt with yet. I'm also going to repeat this command here and here. Okay, so that should work now. Let's hope we don't have any collisions. Yep, that's correct. And there's a collision. Okay, but that's fine. So we've managed to create it. And sorry, we've managed to loop this cycle 3 times, I think. 3 times? No, 4 times. Okay. Now we need to give it specific commands to rotate this arm around here. So the way I'm going to do that is as follows. I think this should work. Let me just step through and check it's actually going to work the way I intend. And there we go. And now I can drop off the final product and reset the arm back to the beginning. And that should work in theory. So let's step through this one more time. It grabs that, bonds it, moves it around there, bonds it, moves it around there, and drops it. Great, product solved. Now, all we need to do is take this arm, which ends its cycle in this position, and move it back up to here. And that should be pretty simple. We just have to add that 1 command there. That's a lot more complicated than the original puzzles you might have faced. And trust me, this game gets crazy, and I'll show you some examples of that in a minute. So let's press play and step through this and see how efficient this is in terms of cost and space and everything like that. So we have to create 6 of these. That's usually the way it is. You have to create 6 of a product. You can also see the cost down here. It's 50 gold and how many cycles it's taking and how much area it's using. And another thing that is difficult to describe is just the enjoyment you get from watching your machines work, if that makes sense. It is quite satisfying. Okay, so again, I can record a GIF and all that stuff. So cost-wise, I'm at the top of the leaderboard. 50 gold, as efficient as it can be. In terms of cycles, though, not very efficient at all. Zach's here managed to do it in 51 cycles. I have no idea how he managed to do that. I would love to see his GIF. And then in terms of area, again, did pretty well. So that's a pretty efficient solution, but it seems I can make it cost even less in terms of cycles. So there you go. There's an example of a much harder puzzle to solve in terms of its programming later on in the game. But another thing I want to show you is this. Over here, we have a puzzle editor, and you can go in yourself and create your own puzzles, and that's really awesome. And then you can upload them to the Steam Workshop, which I'm going to show you now. There are some crazy puzzles. Let me show you this one, the Snowflake Crystal. Let's zoom in on this. So they give you these atoms to start with, and you have to create this. They're all bound, guys. You're going to have to create a system to make that entire snowflake structure, and you have to be able to complete it to do it. So it's absolutely nuts what some people have been able to create in the community. I am very, very impressed and very intimidated by that design. Obviously, Life and Death Encaged here. Here's another one for you to look at. Pretty complicated stuff. And you can see these wires binding everything and this different molecule in the middle and all these things that bind everything together. There are a lot more mechanics as you progress into the game. A lot more reagents to play with, a lot more contraptions and mechanisms and things to play with as well. So it really does have a lot to offer in terms of value. There's a lot of replay value in the sense that you can go through and try and re-optimize your puzzles. And as you can see, I'm about halfway through the game at this point, and that frankly is because it's quite hard later on. But I've still got 3 more chapters to do, and then I have all the content on the Steam Workshop as well. Honestly, I think it's a great game. It's a fantastic puzzle game. It's accessible in the sense that anyone can play it and complete the puzzles, but people can gain satisfaction from doing them better, from being more optimal and competing with their friends on leaderboards, which is always fun. So It's a thorough recommendation from me. If you have any passing interest whatsoever in puzzle games, and you have any interest in programming and debugging and those sorts of things, and just creating beautiful, elegant machines, you will really, really enjoy your time in Opus Magnum. This channel doesn't run ads. I don't accept paid promotional deals. I don't accept sponsorships, and I don't use affiliate links. If you like my work and you want to see it continue, please head on over to patreon.com/idiotechgaming to show your support. As always, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you guys next time.